Hi, I'm Emily Dorr, the home editor at Women's Weekly magazine. Today I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful dip-dyed braided jewellery. It's really simple to do, and once you've mastered the knotting technique you can go on to create lots of lovely accessories. Place your 2 lengths of rope on a flat surface and secure with just a little bit of tape. Approximately 20 centimetres down the rope, you want to curl the rope round to the right and tuck it under the 2 vertical pieces of rope. As so. Taking the 2 ends of the rope, thread it through the loop you've just created. Then pull the 2 lengths all the way through. So you create another loop. Then you need to take the 2 ends and thread it back up through the loop you've just created. Pull the rope through the loop almost all the way until you have something that looks like that. Then take the 2 ends and thread it back through that loop you've just created. Then pull the 2 lengths all the way through that loop and then just tighten up the knots you've created so far. So then we start that process all over again. So you simply take the 2 lengths of rope through the loop you just created to then create this loop, and you flip it back over and through that loop. So just repeating that process again by feeding the 2 ends of the rope up through the loop until you create this loop and then back through. And that creates 4 loops. But it's up to you how many you decide to do. You can do just 2, or you could do 6 or 8, or you could do the whole length of the rope all braided. And then I'm going to show you how to do an ombre effect using some dye and how to attach a clasp just to finish it off so it's nice and professional. So the first thing you need to do is make sure your work surface is covered, because we'll be working with dye and you don't want to discolour anything. We're using a stainless steel pot filled with warm water. From the tap is fine, and then I'm going to be putting in 5 tablespoons of salt into the pan. As you can see, I'm wearing rubber gloves. This is to protect my hands, and this is a wooden spoon that I've used on a previous project, and as you can see things can get a bit messy. So then you need to stir up the salt with the wooden spoon so the salt dissolves. Once the salt has dissolved, you need to take your dye and just pour in a tiny bit into the water. And then use the wooden spoon to stir it up. I've plaited a piece of rope as a test to see the colour of the dye. So I'm just going to submerge this into the saucepan to see if it's the right shade. Move the rope around the saucepan and then lift it up, shaking off any excess and see if that's the correct shade. And I think that looks pretty good to me. So I've just put my test piece on a piece of kitchen roll and now I can see that the shade is correct. I'm ready to move on to my necklace. So taking both ends of the rope, I can now submerge the whole thing into the water. And you can see now why you need to wear the rubber gloves. Otherwise your hands will then turn blue. Keep dipping it into the water until the dye has been sucked up by the rope. So as I did for the test piece, I've just put my necklace to the side on the kitchen roll. And it's now time to add some more dye to the water. I'm just going to tip a little bit more in and stir. I'm going to use my test piece again just to make sure that it's the right strength. So taking your test piece, I'm now going to just submerge it into the water, but not fully. And this is how you get the dip dye effect. And I'm happy with that. So then you just place it to one side and then get your necklace. So I'm going to do exactly the same as I just did on the test piece. I'm going to submerge the necklace mostly in, but leaving the top. Again, moving it around so that the rope sucks up the dye. So I'm going to add some more dye now to intensify the colour, stirring that up. I want to have it a bit darker this time as we move closer to the main knot. Just put that down, and again I'm going to take my test piece and again I'm just going to submerge a small part of the test piece. And I'm happy with that. So then I'm going to get the necklace and I'm going to submerge that, but not as far as I did last time. And then you want to keep continuing to add the dye to intensify the colour until you have the darkest shade just on the tip of the knot. I'm just going to add some more to that, stirring as I go. A little bit more. Trying it out on the test piece. Yeah. And then just dipping the knot in this time. And then the final lot of dye. All goes in. Get all those last bits out. Stir it up. And I'm not going to use it on the test piece this time because I know it's going to be the darkest shade. So I'm just going to put the tip of the knots. So most of the necklace is out of the water. We get a nice rich colour at the bottom. And there you go. So I'm going to put that to one side now because it takes quite a while to dry. So best thing to do is to leave it near a radiator until it's completely dry. So for the clasp, you need to cut the two ends of rope so they're the same size, and then you just add some tacky glue to both ends around the edge and then squeeze together into a point. Then once that's ready, you can then insert that into a bell closing. And then you leave that to dry overnight. You then need to add a jump ring just to the opening of the bell closing. And then carefully hold the jump ring with one pair of pliers. Take your second pair of pliers and carefully squeeze the jump ring closed. So once you've added your small jump ring, it's time to add some larger jump rings. So taking a large jump ring and having opened it with the two pairs of pliers, you simply just want to loop it into the small jump ring and then close it together with the two pairs of pliers. Now you can add as many of these large jump rings as you want, depending on the length of the necklace. As you can see, on the other end, we've done very much the same sort of process, just adding a small round clasp. And then simply connect the clasp and the jump ring together, and there you have it, your finished necklace.